If you are an elderly dictator who instigated a war that's supposed to bring you new lands, fame of strategic genius, and, if not respect, then at least a fear of your Western counterparts, yet all you have now on hand is a war economy deeply addicted to oil and gas injections. Domestic currency that is down fivefold. International politics kicks you out of almost everywhere. ICC indicts you, and as a cherry on the top, the country you invaded has invaded you back, setting a concrete solid control of about around 1,000 square kilometers of your lands, and now you urgently have to find at least 30,000 experienced soldiers to even stop them from advancing, let alone making them turn back, and all you have actually 18-year-old boys, conscripts, and the paradigm of absolute national indifference. The one you have planted in the national subconsciousness on your own by literally amending the constitution of Russia, turning it from a manifest of national freedom and sovereignty into the manifest of your absolute, unquestionable power. If you are all that, then you are Vladimir Putin of Russia. And the existential question that is clearly looming on the horizon for you is, what do I do now? Since Moscow and St. Petersburg are untouchables of sorts in regards to very, very unpopular mobilization, where do I, as a dictator, find those 30,000 soldiers needed urgently? Well, nowhere. Oh, wait. Maybe if you set the standard of who you actually accept into your army to a new low, then there is a way out. Murderers, rapists, even cannibals were let out from Russian prisons to join the occupational Putin's forces in Ukraine, but no one ever thought about unemployed. Great idea. If, or better said, when they die, unemployment rate just descends. Everyone's happy, right? Russians who are registered as unemployed have begun to be offered military contract service as a vacancy. The pub Baza writes about it. Offered is not the proper term, really. In an ancient Russian tradition, it lies in enforcement. Once you accept position of say, a carpenter, you end up in an assault squad right on the front line. And if you refuse, well, then after 2 such refusals, you will be deprived of all social guarantees and unemployment benefits. That means that you no longer will be able to use the services of the state unemployment center and will be forced to look for vacancies on your own. Well, unlike the Russian state unemployment center, that at least offers you some chance of survival.
The military isn't getting enough new soldiers to keep pace with frontline losses that are at their highest since the February 2022 invasion began, according to the 3 people close to the Kremlin and the Russian Defense Ministry, asking not to be identified because the issue is sensitive. Regional officials are leaving more than a third of their recruitment quotas unfilled on average, a person familiar with the situation said, from the article of Bloomberg.
Well, I love this sensitive topic. A prison in northern Ukraine has recently accepted 320 Russian prisoners of war from the Kursk region of the Russian Federation. 80% of them are conscripts with no military experience at all. This was reported by the New York Times, citing a prison's authorities. Some of the prisoners had shrapnel or gunshot wounds. Before becoming Ukrainian POVs, Russian conscripts, 80% of them just 18 or 20 years old boys, told their stories to journalists, how they were placed in platoons of about 30 people in concrete fortifications spaced about 1.5 kilometers apart along the border. Then they faced what they called a sudden, fierce attack and quickly stopped fighting and simply surrendered, the New York Times reported. Well, back in the fall of 2023, a brilliant idea of SUFOR, I call it SUFOR, Special Unemployed Forces of Russia, crossed suddenly Lieutenant General Andrei Gurulev's mind. A member of the State Duma Defense Committee, General proposed mobilizing the unemployed, claiming that they are a burden for Russian labor exchange and society. For those employed, The general proposed introducing a 12 to 15-hour working day and to cancel all the weekends. According to Comrade Gurulov, this was exactly the case in the Second World War, which the Russians called the Great Patriotic War, and back then, according to the general again, no one asked for any questions. We do not know where exactly General Gurulov's children serve. However, what we do know for sure is that the incredible losses, according to Western intelligence sources, exceeding 100,000 people over the past 3 months in the Kursk region, forced the Kremlin to look for additional cannon fodder, and the huge shortage of contract soldiers, despite millions of rubles in payments, makes the absolutely unpopular mobilization seem absolutely necessary, Bloomberg notes. According to them, a new call is planned to begin at the end of this year already. What can we add here? Perhaps Moscow should just wait for our forces to get to Moscow, and then Zelensky can do what Putin can't: cancel the Russian mobilization by the decree of the Ukrainian president.